Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Creator News Live. I am so excited you are here. It's going to be a cold, chilly weekend for much of the United States. So I'm glad we were able to get this off because it was a day later. I may have to be plugging in the old generator. So I'm excited to have my friend Amy Kehs here with us. We're going to have so much fun. And, of course, the unsinkable Connor Brown is with us as well. Connor, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm ready for the cold. It's going to get down to 80 here in Florida. We're bracing for impact.
Yeah, so you might do some golfing in the cold winter weather.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe have to wait for the afternoon for it to warm up. But yeah.
Very cool. We've got our friends already stopping by. We've got but mostly Disney saying, "Let's go." What is happening? Look how small it is. Amy's broke it. She just came for a little bit. She's already broken things. That's all right. I'll fix it. This is what is awesome about Ecamm. And the Paul Gowder, who I was able to hang out with at Podfest, and Amy was there. All our Podfesting friends are here. Look, Zach Brown saying greeting programs. I guess it was said a Tron reference. I don't know. And everyone's saying hi to Amy. And then our friend Rich Grams is saying, hello, folks. Hey, oh, look at him. I know Rich is in Dallas, and I think the cold's already kind of hitting there. I look at it with the little cold shiver symbol. All right, this is going to be a fun one. We'll try to get this in. Amy, I'm so excited that you're here. This is going to be fun.
So. I'm really excited too. I'm usually here every Friday hanging out in the comments. So this is great.
This is going to be fun. So without further ado, because we got so much that we need to talk about, I'm going to hit go on the podcast machine and we will get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Creator News Live. I'm Jeff C. And you're not.
And I'm Connor Brown, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the world of the creator economy and so much more.
Have you ever caught yourself wondering why some organizations seem to attract loyal fans while others struggle to get noticed? Maybe you're trying to figure out how to clearly explain what you do in a way people actually remember. Or maybe you're just doing great work but finding it harder than ever to cut through the noise. If that sounds familiar, you are in the right place.
Today, we're excited to welcome a guest who spent decades helping institutions move from being overlooked to becoming community favorites. Amy Kehs is a strategic communications partner with over 30 years of experience in the museum world. Amy is the creator of the Love My Museum method, where she helps cultural institutions unlock their potential by aligning their brand messaging, visitor experience, and their media presence. She's bringing lessons that apply far beyond museum walls, and she'll be sharing what she's learned about brand messaging, experience, trust, and how those same ideas, any business, build a following that lasts.
So sit back, clear your schedule, clear your mind, and get ready for this week's episode of Creator News Live. And of course, here's Amy's little theme song.
Isn't landing clear, and getting noticed feels hard this year. Amy Kehs is on the show to help your brand earn and grow.
Jazz hands, everyone. Jazz hands. There we go.
Yay!
Very, very cool.
It.
So,
I love it.
So glad you're on the show, Amy. How are you? Where are you dialing in from, by the way? I don't think we asked that at the beginning.
Yeah, I live outside of Annapolis, Maryland. I've lived in Maryland all my life, and it's a great spot. Annapolis is beautiful, super close to Washington, D.C., and also Baltimore.
Very, very cool. Yep. So thank you. What were you going to say, Connor? I know you had some quip about your home state.
Yeah.
Naptown. We call it Naptown. It's our capital. People always forget. Let me just say that was a great intro song. You put that together there, Jeff. I will say, though, the AI motion that you did, for me, I think it was the worst I've seen yet. But I will say what I like the most is when Amy's avatar turns, it looks like she's scolding us, and that is appropriate. She always needs to keep in line.
That's true. That is very true.
I do have to keep you guys in line a bit, don't I?
We do. By the way, I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor, Ecamm. They're what makes the show happen. They're actually being able to pull in that music, being able to do those cool, bring up full screen animations. All that stuff is because of Ecamm. You can find out more about them at eCam.com/Jeff. You can save 15% by using code Jeff15 when you on your first purchase. And by the way, they're having an amazing thing at the UK coming up April 23rd through the 24th. You can find out more about that by going to tubefest.co.uk/creator-camp. Make sure you check that out. Their creator camps are always awesome. First time in the UK. So if you're in the area, make sure you guys go and check that out. Alrighty. We're going to jump right in because we got so much. What are you going to say? You raised your hand,
he
Connor.
has his hand up. Yeah.
What
I was going to say, have you tried out are we allowed to talk about the beta for eCam? The new
I think
feature
since it's
that they
public,
have?
yeah. I'm not doing it right now because I'm
Yeah.
a little, I had to have this perfect for Amy. But yeah, they have some cool stuff coming out. It's beta right now, but a whole other, you can stream out vertical for like shorts and Instagram. Very, very cool. Plus for like repurposing, it's going to be so easy to take that and use it that way. So that's in beta right now. They'll test it out, work out all the bugs. Then it's going to move into their production software. It's going to be really, really cool. So I can't wait to show you guys that. But thank you, Connor.
This is my first time like on this side of eCam. So cool and so easy. I really like it.
Yeah, there's a reason they're a sponsor of the show. I'm just saying. All right, so Amy is a PR expert. Now, full disclosure, she's in our mastermind. Connor and I have been in for, over a year. So I know Amy's business, and that's why I'm so excited to have her on the show. But she is a PR expert, and I wanted to kind of, before we get started, because a lot of people I think get confused, what's the difference, Amy, between PR and marketing?
Such a great question. And I always say, like, for all of the communications professionals out there, there's probably the same number of explanations. But how I like to describe it, and usually I also add in there advertising, is for marketing, advertising, and public relations, it's all about who you're talking to and what space you're talking in. So think of it this way. If it is marketing, it's your space and your voice, your words. So that's like your website or a marketing brochure. If it's advertising, you are borrowing somebody else's space. So it's your message still, but you're borrowing an audience, you're borrowing somebody else's space. So think of that Doritos commercial in the Super Bowl. And then for public relations, ideally, it's someone else talking about you in their space. So think of like, oh, there's a new pizza place down the street. You run into your neighbor on the corner and they're like, oh my gosh, I just went to this new pizza place and it's amazing. You are going to put a lot more into, like, you are going to believe your neighbor a lot more than the Facebook ad, because of course the pizza place is going to say great things about themselves.
Right. Unless you're Connor Brown, because he'll say anything to get his people to click on his tickety talks. But anyway,
that reminds me of my undergrad days when we learned about all this, Amy, when we were talking about it's either paid, earned, or owned media, right?
Yes.
So paid is that advertising, earned is that PR, and owned is your own spaces. So your own newsletter, your own website, your own social media things.
Yeah. And that earned media, it just, it might be a little harder to get. I know we're going to talk about this, but it's just worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. Because I would trust things that Amy would say over than just getting an ad on Facebook. Because if Amy says, hey, you need to go to this museum because it's got this and this, and they're giving out like free sushi or something, I would be like, okay, Amy knows what she's talking about. I'm going to go, right?
Free tacos.
Free tacos. That'd be good. Yeah. But, getting attention is really, really hard. And we're going to talk about that because I think, even with the rise of AI, we're trying to cut through some of the noise because there's so much stuff coming out. They're predicting even more AI slop coming in the pike. So cutting through the noise and, getting in there with your audience, I think is really, really important. But I want to know from the audience, wherever you're watching from, put it down below in the comments. Where do you feel, having this attention struggle that a lot of us have, where do you think it's hardest right now? Is it getting attention right now? Is it staying relevant, like, to your audience, or is it actually getting people to take action? So what's hardest for you right now? Getting attention, staying relevant, or getting people to actually take action? I know that's a struggle for all of us in some way or another, but what are you really struggling with right now? Let us know down below. But Amy, I wanted to ask you because, attention is getting harder to get right now. And it's just not a museum problem. This is a problem,
Right.
across the board for businesses. But you've spent 30 years working with museums, including places like the Smithsonian, this tiny little museum that we all talk about. But from your perspective, why is it harder than ever for museums to get people through the door today? Because I think this is relevant to all of us.
It's a really noisy world, and it is definitely relevant to everybody, whether you're a creator or a small business, whether you're an online business or a brick and mortar business. It's a really noisy world. And just specifically talking about museums, museums used to be the place to go for to learn something or all inspiration. I mean, kind of similar to like your Encyclopedia Britannica, right? If
Mm,
you if you need to know something, like that's where you would go for information. That's where you would go also just for that awe and inspiration. Now people can sit on their couch and in 4K on their smartphone
right.
get the awe and inspiration. So what are you doing to create that experience? People now want an experience. They want that connection.
So, just real quick for a follow up, what do you think has changed most for the last 5 to 10 years? I mean, museums have been around for hundreds of years. I mean, probably thousands of years. There's places to go to see cool things and learn through the exhibits. But what have you seen change the most? Is it the interactive stuff that's going on in the museums? Is it museums building community? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's also people are overscheduled, and you are asking for people's most precious commodity, their
Mhm.
time. That's true for a creator as well. Um, or for a business, you're asking for their time, but you're also asking for their money. And so when people are overscheduled, in addition to having like the next greatest exhibit, you also need to be able to answer the question like, why should I even care?
Hmm.
Why why should I even care about this little museum? Maybe it's a museum in your town and it's on 3 acres that could be used for housing, which your town might need, or a new
Right.
grocery store, or a park for your kid. So, why should I care? That's the question that you need to answer. And the answer can be in that connection, those relationships. You want people to love your museum or your business so much that they can't imagine life without you. You want to create community.
That's a great answer. No matter if you're a museum or just a solopreneur watching this show. So
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely easier said than done. But I know, Amy, you always talk about, museums bring you in because you have such a specific skill set and expertise. And a lot of the times when you're interacting with these museum leaders, they don't know what you know. And they're also coming from a place of being rooted in the museum world, right? They're a curator, they're an exhibitor, those sorts of things. So I'm interested to know, when you talk to these museum leaders who might not be getting the foot traffic that they want or who aren't building that community and want that, what do they think the problem is with that? And then how often is that different from what the real issue is?
They usually think that it's a marketing problem. They will say, we are a hidden gem. People just don't know. People just don't know we're here. Um, and it's actually that relevance problem. It's actually you need to create a relationship so that they know the answer to why should I care, or why is this an important thing in my life?
mhm.
So I always say that every museum needs to be a community museum. And that is true for businesses as well. Like you want to be the museum that has the Halloween event that families come to year after year. You want to be helping families create traditions if you're a small business, whether it's brick and mortar or you have a YouTube channel, what is it? How are you going to create those relationships so that you are the coffee shop that people meet at every Friday, or the YouTube equivalent of being the Cheers bar around the corner?
Mhm. Yeah, I think, it's interesting that you said that about Halloween and then the YouTube. But first, I want to bring up some of the comments from our amazing audience. Raymond Keating, we asked the question, they struggling with the most? And taking action, like getting people to take action. Ray, I know, is a great author. I get his emails to his books, and I know like there's sales and there's special Amazon stuff. And so I can see for him, it'd be taking action, like getting people to buy his books. That's what he wants people to do. And then, but mostly Disney, getting folks to take action, like, subscribes, responding to email, commenting. Yeah, getting people to interact I think, is across the board, is something that we all want. We either want them to purchase our stuff, subscribe, leave a comment like we were asking to do before. So it's getting harder and harder to do that. But I thought the points that you made are spot on. One of the things that I did want to ask is, when you talked about YouTube, because so many places, YouTube's used to be like the destination for field trips. I remember going to so many museums. Our kids in Texas, there's a kind of the annual pilgrimage from our school to go to the Alamo. That was a big thing to go to in San Antonio, and weekend destinations. But they're having the trouble, almost like YouTube, like in movies. Like, why do I want to go to a movie when in a couple weeks I can sit down in my couch, I can pause it for bathroom breaks, I can do everything at home now. So do you think that's what's pulling attention away from museums? And what can museums and brands learn from the shift? Like, how can we maybe think of ways that are outside of the typical field trip box, or brick and mortar box, to get people to come in our store? What are some ways we can maybe think a little bit more creative?
I call this brand love. And I think that there are three parts to it. And for museums, I've put this together into, I call it the Love My Museum method. There are three things: brand messaging, a really great, amazing visitor experience, and media relations. And the first part, that brand messaging, I think, especially for creators, especially for solopreneurs, and also museums, is really key. When people talk about their brand, they think about a logo and colors, but there's also a messaging component to that as well. And you need to be clear, you need to be consistent, and you need to be really confident. I think as solopreneurs and as creators, it can be really tempting to kind of experiment and play around with like the words that we're using when it comes to our business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. And that it's good to experiment, but you also need to have those words that you repeat all the time. Because remember, our goal is we want people to talk about you when you're not even in the room. We want them to learn that messaging. So to be clear, to be consistent. I mean, you should be sick of your elevator speech or your tagline. You should know how to talk about your mission, vision, and values. And so much that it is ingrained in everyone's mind, that they know exactly what they do or what you do, so that if they run into somebody at a party and they're talking about like, I'd really love to learn more about AI, or man, I really could use a great travel agent, these people, you are top of mind. They think of you first. They're like, oh, you should check out Jeff C's show, or oh, you need a travel agent, you need to go visit Vacation Kingdoms. You want to be known for one thing, and you need to talk about it all the time. And you don't have to be a Nike, just do it, or Apple, think different. Like, you can have your brand messaging and teach it to people so that they buy in and they feel like they know you and they're on your side.
That's a great point. Yeah.
I think that that's so interesting, and just hammering it, right? Like you need your elevator pitch. You need to know what your about us is so that you can immediately say it. And the more you regurgitate, and I think the thing with that too is like you think, oh my God, these people know this, right? They've heard me say it 1,000 times, but they probably don't remember it until you're getting sick of it. They're not, fully remembering all of that, which is important. Amy, you deal with museum level things, right? People coming to the museum, that scope and size. But for someone listening right now who has a small business of their own or a personal brand, what are some warning signs that you've seen in the museum world that says, hey, we're being ignored, right? No one's listening to us. What are some of those signs that the small business solopreneur can be on the lookout for?
I think it's not getting that customer who's coming back to buy more. It's a lot cheaper to get someone to buy something a second time than it is to acquire a new customer. And the same is for museums. And I think when you aren't getting those repeat buyers or you aren't getting those repeat visitors, it really comes down to customer experience, or in the case of museums, a visitor experience. You need to know what your customer journey looks like. You need to know all of the touch points along that customer journey. And you need to really think about, like, how am I interacting with this person? And is it on repeat, right? We've all had that experience where we go to a restaurant, we have an amazing experience. We get seated right away, the waitress is fantastic, the food is really great. We go home and we tell our friends and we're like, let's go next week. You're going to love this place. And then you go back and it's an entirely different experience. And what are you? You're embarrassed, you're kind of mad. And you want that visitor experience, that customer experience to be solid. My favorite Disney quote is, do what you do so well that they want to come back and bring their friend. And Disney has a method for this. They are looking to repeat that visitor experience so that you also know what to expect, because people don't like to walk into mystery. They want to know what's coming. They want to, you want to have that waitress that knows what your favorite, like what your order is before
Right.
you sit down. Like, you want that feeling. And I think that is the sign for small businesses. Are people coming back to buy again? And how to fix it is to look at that customer journey.
Yeah, and you know what? That's really interesting you said that, because it's almost sometimes the easiest lift to differentiate
Yes.
yourselves from other people. I know Connor's a fan too, but Justin Welsh had like an article, I think last week, where he's talking about exact same thing you said. Was he went to a restaurant? It was his favorite restaurant. It was perfect. They would serve him. They knew his name. It was a small little thing, and then it changed and it was horrible service, and he's like, he's not even going to go back. And like, it's just a little thing like customer service, or like just keeping your water glass filled, like
Yeah.
stuff that's not hard to do, but can easily, as you grow or you become comfortable in your brand, can slip through the cracks. And I think this is going to be more and more important than ever. I don't know what are your go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's universal. Like, this is just ingrained, and that's another thing that I love about public relations, is like it's about human. It's human experience. It's shared human experience. Um, when my kids were little, we would go to Friendlies. Sadly, our Friendlies is gone, but we would go to Friendlies, and our favorite waitress was Tabitha. And Tabitha knew to bring the kids their little kid placemats and their crayons. She knew what everybody liked to drink. Sometimes she would have our drink, like, we're walking in from the parking lot and our
Right.
drinks are on the table. Like, Tabitha was amazing. But when their grandparents would come to visit, where did my kids, little kids, want to take the grandparents, they wanted to take them to Friendlies because they wanted to see, like, look how we fit in. Look how
Right.
great Tabitha is. You want to share that experience with your friends and your family. And that's public relations. That's
Yeah.
PR.
Well, you think about even how the three of us came in our circles together. We went to a conference that did a really great job, Momentum, that did that. Like, and then stuff happens, like masterminds form and thing. But it came from that first, like, really good customer experience at this conference where things happened. You met people who had a growth mindset that really wanted to, take their business, and it just worked. And I think that kind of tapping into that kind of stuff, not even trying to be markety or like, spammy or whatever, but it just kind of happens organically when you have a great product, right? Like, it really works really well. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna kind of go down this rabbit trail a little bit more because I wanted to ask you, we've mentioned the Smithsonian that you've worked for, you've helped them with their PR. And people are like, okay, yeah, Smithsonian, everybody knows the Smithsonian. But there are a lot of other museums that you work with that don't have the brand recognition of Smithsonian, but you can still have some of these things. And like, I think for a lot of us creators, it's like we see the Hermosis or the Mongellos or the Connor Browns that have all this huge following and everybody likes, wants to be around them. And we're like, but I'm only here. So what kind of takeaways can you, when you think about, like, I know a lot of museums go, I'm not the Smithsonian. Like, I don't have that budget or whatever. What kind of principles can you take that you've taught from helping those smaller ones that we can use as creators who don't have the brand recognition like so many museums have?
I love this question so much. First, for every Smithsonian project that I've ever done, I have not had a marketing budget. It has all been earned media relations. Yes, the brand recognition is totally there, but that is a small part of it. They are consistent. They have an amazing visitor experience. And when it comes to media relations, they have really good relationships with the people that are on their media list. And I think that when I'm talking to a smaller museum, they say the same thing. They're like, well, Amy, you're used to working at the Smithsonian and we're just not there. But that isn't true. In every communications plan that I do, there is a section that talks about the different audiences. Who are the different audiences that you're speaking to? And almost developing, like, when I've worked with small businesses, almost developing like a hierarchy. So thinking about just as an example, thinking about your email list, those people are giving you space in their inbox. You need to treat them like VIPs. If you have an announcement to make, they should learn first. They should learn about it first, and it should be through your email. They shouldn't see it first on social media. So think about the different audiences that you speak to and how can you make them feel like VIPs. I think the other thing is that visitor experience or that customer experience. When I'm talking to smaller museums, one mistake that I see over and over again is they think that the visitor experience starts when a visitor walks through the door. Oh, no, we're like a third into that visitor experience. They have been checking you out on social media. They've looked at your website. On your website, do you have a plan your visit button or page that makes it easy for them to plan a visit? They had to drive there. Could they see the sign from the road?
Oh, yeah.
Are you handicap accessible? Like, there's a whole part of the visitor experience before they even walk in the door. The same is true for small businesses.
Yeah, those are great points the things that we take, we think that everybody knows, we may have to like keep saying it. My wife is always saying, nobody knows that. You think everybody does. And I'm like, and we have that kind of that, fog of like, we think we've been doing it for so long. It's just like, oh, I thought everybody knew that. And having those people come in and say, oh, you need a handicap ramp, or, oh,
Yes.
you need to have another language on your website, or, oh, you need to have, a bigger, call to action on your website. How can they sign up? Like, how can they find out more? How can they book a call? All that stuff. I think we kind of just like think that we know what we're doing, but sometimes we really need to go back to the basics on some of this stuff.
So true. So true.
Or even telling people that you have those things. Maybe you're already handicap accessible, but it doesn't say it anywhere on anything, so people get turned away. It's telling people what we also have. I think we do this a lot in the travel agent space, where somebody comes to me, I book them a cruise, and then the next thing I know, they've also booked a vacation somewhere else, and they say, hey, I could have helped you with that too. And they said, oh, I had no idea you can book other things. That's on me, right? For not educating them on what I am able to do for them. A couple great comments here. We have a question, but before that, I just want to comment on Rich's comment real quick. Rich Graham, he says, a lot of this stuff comes from the book Unreasonable Hospitality. Great examples for any business. Rich, that's been on the top of my to-read list for a while. I know it's by the Maitre D from 11 Madison Park, which has been the best restaurant in the world for a number of years. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading that. And then we have our friend Paul Gowder. Gowder's on the go. He meant to ask you this at PodFest last week. What do you think about brands like Wendy's that is taking an online voice that's very different from their brand values? They just roast people on social. You just commented on it, Amy, about before people even step foot in the door, they've already researched you. They've gone on social, right? And then they've gone on the website. So when Paul's example is saying, Wendy's obviously a much bigger thing, right? And it's more, if it's top of mind, you're going to go to Wendy's, that sort of thing. But when there is a disconnect, what do you think about that? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right?
It does. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think in that case, and I have a couple of other really great examples, it's the audience. Like, who are you talking to? Who is on Instagram looking at that ad? There's an amazing reel right now. It's the National Gallery of Art is one of my favorite social media accounts to follow, along with national parks, because they also can be a little fun, and Smithsonian as well. The National Gallery of Art posted, they were talking about a contest for teens. And so it's this curator. She's an older woman. She's completely adorable. And she is speaking another language, like all of the teen lingo that's out there. Right now.
Yeah.
It's so great. It's so great. So I really think that it makes your brand, like when you can do things like what Wendy's is doing or the National Gallery of Art, like it shows that your brand is fun, right? And it shows that you're trying to connect with other audiences, and that and there's almost like a level of not just fun, but like respect there, right? Like, but I think it's okay to be fun. I think it's okay to do that, and not just try it out, but like really embrace it. Like, this is how we're going to be on social media. I think it's great. And it is a brand voice.
Yeah. And I think, to Paul's point about Wendy's, I think one, it's their logo comes up to all the, wherever they're up on social. And that logo is so, we talked about Smithsonian and people who have brand recognition, like you see it. And to your point, when people see the snarky comments from Wendy's, because a lot of times they'll poke fun at McDonald's or something else. So it's kind of sometimes in their space, but they know that it's a fun brand. Like you were saying, like, oh, am I going to pick like an old school stodgy place to eat? Or am I going to go to Wendy's, which will kind of have fun and poke with people online? So I just think it's very interesting, Paul, what they're doing, and how well they do it. And I wonder, like, how many people run that account? Like, is there just one really funny dude or a girl, or is it just like a team, like the SNL writers room or something, that they're doing all that stuff? Anyway, it's pretty interesting. We're going to talk next about this. Amy had mentioned it before, her Love My Museum method, because there's a lot of things that we can take away as creators from what she has put together. But I want to ask you guys in the audience. Oh, and by the way, we've got James Hicks said he loves the discussion. James is an amazing creator, but he loves the old school phone and typewriter behind Amy. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Other YouTubers are always
Part of
checking
my
out other people's
brand.
background.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of her brand. They're always checking that out. But what I wanted to ask you guys in the audience, and drop it down wherever you're watching from down below, what part do you think is hardest for your business right now? Explaining what you do, because Amy talked about that, like having the elevator pitch, and creating a great first experience. We've talked about that. Or getting others to talk about you. So what's harder for you? Explaining what you do, create a first experience, or getting others to talk about you? I want to know. Let us know down below. But we're going to talk about Love My Museum method. Now, you created this, Amy. So can you walk us through the 3 parts, which are brand messaging, visitor experience, and media relations? Because I think this can be applicable to creators across the board.
Definitely. And actually I started working on it and developing it when I was not just working with museums, but when I was also working with online businesses at the time. And the first part, brand messaging, is all about that know, like, and trust factor. So what we've been talking about, do people not just recognize that brand voice, but also can hear your message clear, see it consistently, know exactly what you do so that they can talk about you when you're not in the room. So that's the first part. And you need to be consistent and it has to be solid. The second part is that visitor experience. So for a museum, what is the before the visit experience, the during the visit experience, and then after the visit? Like, how do you collect their information so that you put them on the email list, or you tell them about that Halloween program or a festival that you have coming up so that you can turn them into a lifelong fan. You want somebody to not just come to your museum or visit your business or watch a YouTube video, whatever it is. You don't want them to just watch it, check the box, and say, I don't have to do it again. Like, you want them to say, like, oh, that was amazing and I need to go back. Or I want to buy the t-shirt. I want to buy a membership. I want to become a donor. Like, how do you make them a lifelong fan? And that is around that visitor experience. So they've kind of found you online. They've learned who you are through brand messaging. They've had this amazing, amazing experience that's made them want to come back and bring a friend, as Walt Disney says. And then the last part is media relations. And that's important because you want that third party endorsement. And that could be a neighbor on the street. That could be doing, it doesn't have to be media relations. It could be some other way to borrow an audience. But media relations and getting a third party endorsement sort of solidifies in a person's mind, oh, yes, I've made the right choice. Like, okay, I thought that was really great. And now this person's also saying that it's really great. So it must be really great.
Right.
Sometimes we need that.
Right. Very cool.
Let's focus on the first thing too, brand messaging. What I think so many museums struggle with is how to explain like why they matter, right? I think
Yes.
media relations really helps when there's a big new display coming, right?
Right.
There's a new exhibit. Media is going to pick that up. They're going to talk about it. But I think a lot of the times these museums, they're saying we matter because of X thing we have, right? Or Y thing we have, not really the over encompassing, well, this is what we're doing. Like a perfect example. I love the American History Museum, the Smithsonian American History Museum. Every time I would go there, I'd always say, all right, let's see what's not on display right now. Is Kermit going to be out, right? Are the Ruby Red Slippers going to be there? Is Carol O'Connor's chair? Is the Star Spangled Banner going to be under restoration, right? It was always something. So at that point, it became a museum of, all right, what do they have behind the door that's not on display? So it was hard to say like why it mattered, So why do you think museums overall just have a tough time explaining, hey, forget the things we have. This is why we matter. And this is why we're doing great work.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when it comes to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, one of my great friends, um, it's really easy to explain why the Star Spangled Banner matters,
Right,
right?
right,
It's that's an easy sell.
right.
But when you are a smaller museum and maybe you have something on display from, I don't know, the town's founder or something. Um, I think that, or you have, I talked to a museum once, they're like, we have the most amazing 1800 wedding dress collection. Like who would want to miss this? And I think, you know, a museum space is very much like an academic atmosphere.
Mhm.
Um, you know, they're studying these things. They're experts in their field on very niche subjects. And so of course, like, oh, this is the most important thing. And so I think that getting them to understand, like, it needs to be the whole experience.
Right.
A blockbuster exhibit is great, but you also need to have story time on Saturday mornings. You need to have like that family day event. You need to become a community museum so that it doesn't matter what's on display. That it's the space, it's the being part of the community, and that is what you're focused on, and not the teacup or the
Right.
wedding dress collection.
So I want to dig on this a little bit because when we were at Podfest we talked about this a little bit. But you mentioned this thing that I can't remember what museum, maybe Smithsonian's, that called the Bird Lab. Like I had never heard
Yes,
of it before.
yes,
And you said there's even going to be like a series on it. I think your daughter may be working for like or interning
yes.
there. I mean, and I'm like, why haven't I never heard about this? Because it's like whenever, so I want you to explain it and then maybe some lessons we can take away from it, because I was like, one, it was word of mouth. It came from you, but you're like Miss Museum, like you know everything about it. But I'm like, this was fascinating to me, and I'm like, why have I not heard of this before? So talk about the Bird Lab a little bit.
I think the one thing that people forget about museums, and when I say museums, I mean, I use the term very broadly. Like it could be a nature center, it could be a zoo. A zoo is really just, you know, their collection is alive, but there are
Mhm.
still, there's science going on, there's research that's
Right.
going on. And at the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History, they have something called the Feather Lab that started in the 1950s,
Feather Lab.
and they study bird strikes. They partner with the NTSB, and there's a book out right now. I think it's called the Feather Lab. And my daughter is volunteering in this lab. And yes, there is the work that museums do behind the scenes that they don't talk about. And it doesn't have to be a Smithsonian museum. You know, it could be like the nature center has like a really cool eagle who has a really interesting story, or you know, it could be a historic home has done a really interesting archaeological dig. It doesn't need to be again, Star Spangled Banner or
Right.
Feather Lab level. Share your stories, like share what you're doing, share those behind the scenes moments.
Yeah.
I have a follow up
Go
to
ahead.
that as well. So, Amy, when we're talking about that, how important is it for a museum to say, "Do you think this is cool? Great, you need to come see it because this is how you're supporting us." Like,
Yes.
they put an emphasis on what they're doing. Like the purpose isn't the things are on display. The things are on display is a byproduct of all the research that they've done. And the only way you're going to continue to see cool stuff is if you come and support us in our research. Like, is that a turnoff for people, or is that something that they should focus on even more?
I mean, I think that you can do that a few different ways. I think you can be super direct, like take the brick upside the head and say, like, this is what your donation dollars are going towards. Um, but it can also be on a more personal, sort of intimate level. Again, if you have a really great email list and you are thinking of those people as VIPs, let them have, like, here's a behind the scenes tour just for the people on our email list, where you'll get to see this behind the scenes thing that we're restoring or preparing for an exhibit. Like, think about that. um, what are those extra things that you can do to get people to care about your museum, and for that buy-in? And yeah, sometimes I think it's really important to say, like, look, here's an artifact that we just restored, and we would not have been able to do it without you. Like, that is really, really important, because that's also information that, again, they can share with
Mhm.
others. Like, I am a part of this. Like, I'm a part of this restoration. I'm a part of this research. I think that museums probably don't do that enough, and don't share that enough.
And going back to the Feather Lab, which is really really cool, is that, and I think there's a takeaway for creators and entrepreneurs in this, because a lot of this goes kind of back to, we think everybody knows what we do, or everybody
Yeah.
knows that piece of information, like knowing, like I know Connor enjoys cooking, like he cooks for, puts things together, does special Christmas meals. I know, Amy tells me this cool stuff about a Feather Lab, and her what she does with the midshipmen, bringing them into her home because she's so close. And like, I carve, and we're getting ready to do a new show about carving. Spoiler alert. But those little things that you find out about people draw you in, and it's not done in a way, like we said, to be spammy or like top of the funnel and all that stuff. It's just who we are, and we're sharing aspects of that outside our lives. And I think that is hugely important. Even more so, we talked about cutting through the noise. Those little things that people can connect with are so important. Like the Bird Lab. Like, I had no idea the government worked together with Smithsonian. I just thought they had exhibits, right? And I didn't know that there's like an actual function now that they do to make air travel safer, and the Smithsonian's a part of that. I think that's fascinating. So stuff like that, I think, is a really big takeaway. Is like, what can you share really organically about yourself that can connect you with other people? So I just thought that was the Feather Lab. When you were telling me that, I thought that was so fascinating. I just remembered it.
It is so fascinating.
We got our friend Zach Brown, and this is a great point, saying, I think just asking the question, are others talking about what I do, is a great way to stir up action within myself. And on that point, what do you think, Amy, that at what point does a museum or a business realize that marketing alone isn't enough anymore, and they need to do some of these things that you've talked about in your museum method and stuff like that? Like, what point is it they've noticed the crowds are going down, or they need money? Like, usually it's too late. You need marketing at the wrong time. You need to market when you're, flush. But what do you think when do they realize that, and what are some steps they can do?
I think you're right. I think, if people are not coming in the doors to your museum, or they're not engaging with you, if you're a creator, then it's almost too late, but also it's never too late, right? Public relations, you can start it at any time. Think outside the box, be creative. Think about, how can you connect with your audience? How can you connect with the people on your email list? If you're a museum, like, how can you make that visitor experience better? A few years ago, I went to a little museum called Heritage Museums and Gardens in Sandwich, Massachusetts. A really big property, big garden area. They had a few museums at the space too, and you could buy tickets ahead of time. So I bought tickets online, got a really great email like, here are your tickets. Let us help you plan your visit. So smart.
Yeah.
I get to the museum, and there's like a guy on a golf cart, like at the entrance, like, hey, what are your names? Like, I'm going to be driving around. Like, if you get tired, just flag me down. I was like, that's great. And we did. We saw him a few times during our visit while we were there. When I got home, because they had my email address from buying the tickets, they sent a follow up like, how was your visit? How was your day? We can't wait till you come back again. Super simple. It's a little tiny town that my friend lives in, and I have gone back to Heritage every single time I've gone to visit.
That's
Like,
cool.
I could have just checked the box. So, how can you connect? How can you develop those relationships with your customers, your clients, your visitors?
Very, very cool.
And now,
Yeah.
Amy, you loved it so much. You're telling everyone about it. And especially for
Yeah.
you in the museum world, that's a big deal, right? We've talked about how important it is so much already on today's episode about that earned media, about people talking about you. And you say, people trust what the world says about you more than what you say about yourself, right? So that earned media. Why, in today's day and age, do you think that's so important right now? Why is it more important than ever for the world to be saying things about you?
I think because it's a noisy world. I think there's a statistic that people get 10,000 messages, marketing messages, brand messaging. They come in contact with like 10,000 a day.
Oh
That is a
gosh.
lot. That is like by the time you get to lunchtime,
Right.
people have been bombarded 5,000 times with messages. And so, how do you cut through that? And one way is media relations. It's that extra credibility. Richard Branson says, a public relation, like an ad, is so much more effective than an ad, like infinitely more effective than an ad. Media relations it's my jam. Like it's what I've been doing for 30 years. And a lot of times when I'm talking to solopreneurs or creators, they will say like, "Oh my gosh, I could never do media relations. Like I don't even know where to start." Media relations is also relationships. Open up a Google Sheet, find some reporters from your local paper, your local TV station, and just stay top of mind. Send them an email, tell them what you're working on. Pay attention to what's in the news. Like if you have a tie-in with, an article that's just come out in a newspaper or a study that's come out, send the people on that list like, "Hey, I'm an expert in this, and this just came out, and here's how I can contribute to the conversation." Journalists are always looking for content. And so if you are helpful, if you're staying top of mind, if you're also being consistent, you can be that expert. Like media relations doesn't have to be scary.
So that is, I need to hire you to be my media aid. I mean, because we don't think about, is help a reporter out still a thing? Do people still use that?
Yeah. I think it's still a thing. People send stuff to me, but I really think that you can do it yourself. Like,
Okay.
don't rely on that. It's really not hard. One of my kind of pet peeves is PR firms who are like, our media list is gold and that's what you're buying. I disagree. If you're a small museum or you have your own business, you should have your own media list and you should be reaching out to them consistently. It makes such a big difference. If I am just calling a journalist or reporter as me, Amy Kehs, PR firm or PR person, they hang up on me. But if I'm Amy Kehs and I'm calling from the Loudon Museum in Virginia, or I'm calling from, of course, the Smithsonian, like they want to hear from you. They don't want to hear from a PR firm. So do your own media outreach.
That's a great point. Connor, were you going to say something when I talked about help a reporter out?
No, I think it's a great service, and I think it's a lot easier. Like even local media, like local news channels, they have like 9 shows a day that they have to fill content with, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you can pitch something that is worthwhile, even if it's a 2-3 minute segment, if you're good on it, they're going to invite you back. There's so much content that needs to be filled in the world.
Yeah.
And also remember that when you do get that opportunity, it is a relationship. It's just you, and you need to be dependable. They're on a deadline. Like you do need to drop everything and help them out, help them with their deadline. Be a good host.
Mhm.
If they're coming to your location, um, even if it's a local reporter. And also when you're building your media list, don't forget about bloggers or other creators. They are spreading the word too. For my media list, I have radio, TV, newspaper, and I also have bloggers and other influencers on my media lists.
Yeah. One thing I would say that if you are sending emails or whatever, make it personable. I mean,
Yes.
half of the 5,000 or 10,000 messages we get a day are pitches for me to be on the show or to be on Guy's show or my clients. And they're like, hello, blank name. I really enjoyed blank in this episode blank. And it's just like, I can tell. And then they'll suggest somebody has nothing to do with the show, right? Like, hey, we want to have this new stripper who has a new OnlyFans account. And I'm like, not my audience. Not my audience.
Well,
Connor's
maybe we
maybe.
hear that one.
Yeah,
Maybe we hear
Connor
that.
was like, maybe we should try. Anyway, so last question, Amy. This has been great. And we talked about the difference between PR and marketing, but there's a lot of solopreneurs, small businesses watching this show. So when should a business prioritize PR over marketing, or at least stop treating PR like an afterthought?
I think yesterday.
And not just because you're a PR expert.
Right. But marketing is important too. Like you need to have a communications plan, right? And your communications plan needs to be diverse. It needs to include marketing, but it also needs to include public relations. And the public relations part is important because of all the reasons that we talked about today. Like it is a very noisy world. People are bombarded with messages all day long. And so you need to try for that more personal relationship.
Yeah, I think that is key. This has been an amazing show. By the way, folks, we've been talking with Amy Kehs. And for you guys listening on the podcast, her name is spelled Kehs. That's Kehs. And she's at lovemymuseum.com. So make sure you guys go check her out. But she's also got a ton of resources on her website. If you go to lovemymuseum.com/resources, she's got like a ebook on there. What else have you got on there, Amy? Tell us a little bit more.
Ebook. I have my own podcast, Love My Museum podcast. I do a planning calendar every year for museums, metrics tracker. I talk a lot about tracking your metrics so that you can see like what's working, what's not working. So yeah, lots of great free resources on there.
Yeah, so lovemymuseum.com/resources is where you can check her out. But make sure you go follow Amy wherever she's at. She's on LinkedIn. Make sure you find her at Amy Kehs. She's got a lot of her content goes up there on LinkedIn. I see her post there all the time. All our friends are going, cannot believe it's already been an hour. This hour flew by really quick. There's a great question by Rich. Maybe we can answer this really quickly. How can one get on a media list from a brand? I'd love to get a heads up from consumer brands about upcoming promotions before they make the news. He's Rich is a big promotions. He makes the things that like pencils and cups and all that stuff. He's a big promotions guy. So how can he get on a list?
If you go to their website, look for a PR contact, and just ask them, just send an email and say, hey, this is what I do. If you have a media list, I'd love to be on it.
Cool.
It's that simple. I get those all the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Rich, for asking your question. Thanks for everybody in the comments. But Connor Brown, where can people find out about the amazing, unsinkable Connor Brown and what you got going on?
You can head over to vacationkingdoms.com. You can follow me at Vacation Kingdoms across the social medias. Reach out to me. Let's plan your next trip. Get out of the cold. Get out of the cold.
Right.
Jeff, it's always great having an awesome friend on the show. Amy
Yes.
today was awesome.
Good job, Amy. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for our sponsors, Ecamm. Find out more about them by going to ecamm.com/Jeff. You can save 15% by using code Jeff15. They are what makes this show possible. And amazing guests like Amy Kehs. Make sure you guys follow her everywhere. Amy Kehs, lovemymuseum.com. Connor Brown. He set me up for a vacation. I'll be speaking at Social Media Marketing World in April. Connor's setting up all the stuff. So he can do big trips, small trips, trips in between, but he is there for all your vacation needs, so make sure you check him out. And I would love for you guys to sign up for my newsletter at jeffc.com/news. That's where we talk about cool guests and other things like this show. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Rich, but mostly Disney, James Hicks, everybody who watched and left comments. We appreciate you. And if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for watching. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.